Good afternoon, committee members and other parties of interest. The reconvened evaluation meeting for RFP-24-24791, covered materials processing facility services for the Solid Waste Management Department, will be held by means of communications media technology. Active participation will be for committee members only. Provisions have been made for members of the public desiring to have access to view the meeting. Public attendees must remain on mute with cameras off. For the record, this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be available after the meeting has ended. Please be advised that the phone of silence during the event shall end the earlier of 5 business days after the county posts its notice of intent to award the contracts associated with this solicitation, or on the date the procurement solicitation is canceled by the county. All questions, comments, and concerns must be directed to my attention and my attention only. My name is Lisa Demina, and I am the senior buyer for this project. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and has been publicly noticed. At this time, I will ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chairperson, Travis Barnes.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Travis Barnes. I'm the division director of our Sustainability and Disposal Operations Division within the Solid Waste Department for Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Watson. I'm the section manager of the Sustainable Materials Management section with Hillsborough County Solid Waste.
Good afternoon, Brian Johnson, Division Director, Business Services and Support, Solid Waste Management Department.
And I'm John Muller, Director for Facilities Management and Real Estate Services, Hillsborough County.
Thank you, committee. The presentations will now be evaluated and scored based on the following criteria. Criteria 1, qualifications, experience, references, RFP Form 4. 10 points with the following breakdown. 2 points for meeting minimum qualifications, up to 5 points for existing recycling facilities, up to 3 points for references. Criteria 2, financial strength, risk assessment, and safety compliance, 5 points. Criteria 3, approach to providing RMPF services, 20 points with the following breakdown. Up to 5 points for designated facility approach, including the technical specifications information checklist. Up to 10 points for meeting the scope. Up to 3 points for marketing county program recyclables. Up to 2 points for other specific information. Criteria 4 and 5 were already established and remain the same. We are now at the scoring phase of this meeting. All firms have presented, and we will now proceed with the consensus scoring of the oral presentation. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to the committee chairperson, Travis Barnes, to lead the discussion, evaluation, and I will record and confirm the score.
Thank you, Lisa. So evaluation committee, we were able to see the oral presentation. We'll start with the scoring for balconies. Based on the oral presentation and the RFP that was submitted, does anyone feel that there needs to be a change to criteria 1 scoring? I do not personally.
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, so we are consensus that scores remain the same for criteria 1, Lisa, for balconies. We'll then move to criteria 2. Again, we are scoring balconies here. Does anyone feel that based on the presentation, scores should be revised for criteria 2, which is the financial strengths, risk assessment, and safety performance? John? No.
No, I do not.
And I do not either. So Lisa, we will keep the scores the same as a consensus for part 2. For criteria 3, approach to providing RMPF services. Does anyone feel that scores need to be revised based on what they heard from the oral presentation? So,
I do not.
John? No.
No.
Right. And I do not either. So we will keep the scores as is, Lisa, as a consensus for all 3 criteria for balconies. Okay. You're not going to read out the scores, or we'll do that at the end.
I'll do that at the end.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on, committee, to the WM proposal. based on the oral presentation we saw today from WM, for part one, does anyone feel the scores need to be revised, based on what you heard today?
I do not.
No.
No.
I don't either. So we are keeping the same score for WM for criteria one. For criteria two for WM, does anyone feel that the scores need to be revised down at all based on what you heard today? Second.
I do not.
No. John?
No.
I don't either, so we will also keep the same score for criteria two. And for the criteria three, approach to providing RMPF services for WM, does anyone feel that the scores need to be revised based on what you heard from the oral presentation today?
I do not.
No.
No.
And I don't either, so we will keep the scores consistent for criteria three as well for WM. So.
Now that your discussions and final consensus scoring are completed, we will begin confirming the final scores. For Balcones Resources Inc.'s criteria one, we have a consensus score of 10 points. Criteria two, a consensus score of 5 points. Criteria three, a consensus score of 20. Is everyone in agreement with these scores?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
For Waste Management Inc. of Florida. Criteria one, we have a consensus score of 10 points. Criteria two, a consensus score of 5 points. And criteria three, a consensus score of 20 points. Is everyone in agreement with these scores?
Yes.
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 For criteria 4 and 5, they were previously established and remain the same. For criteria 4, processing fee, 65 points. For Balcones Resources, 65 points. For Waste Management Inc. of Florida, 60.65 points. For criteria 5, DMDWBE bonus points, a total of 5 points. For Balcones Resources Inc., 0 points. For Waste Management Inc. of Florida, 0 points. Since we have all of the scores, I will now announce the final consensus score for each company. For Balcones Resources Inc., a final consensus score of 100. And for Waste Management Inc. of Florida, a final consensus score of 95.65. Travis, please send the evaluation summary and department recommendation on how you want to proceed. I will consider the meeting completed and will get the recording of the meeting posted as soon as possible. I will complete the spreadsheet for the final consensus scoring and print it before you leave so that I can obtain everyone's signature. Thank you all for attending. I will now close the meeting.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.